CTC Radio, the only radio station committed to the coast. My name is Lord Sanctus, and we are the only radio station playing 805 hip hop and R&B, and bringing you 805 community news. And I am happy to have my first guest of 2024, DNC Dex, aka Dexter Nunnery, in the building. What's good, sir? Thank you for joining.
Hey, what's up, brother? Thank you for having me.
Anytime, man. I'm always happy to speak with you. You always have something insightful and educational to say, so I'm looking forward to our conversation. But before we dive into that, if you wouldn't mind giving the people, I know you do many things. You have Round 4, Project 50, and a whole bunch of other creative endeavors and community empowering endeavors. So give the people a little bit of intro and let them know what you do and who you are.
Sure. Dexter Nunnery. Most people in on the coast in Ventura County, know me for being a community person. I've always done like community activities, platforms before I created Project 50. I used to have another platform called Hip Hop Help where we would put on hip hop shows monthly to help people with food, rent, and utility assistance. So that kind of got me like connected to the 805 scene as far as me personally. But hey, I'm a guy from Mississippi, man, from the SIP. Went to Jackson State, and I brought all that Southern energy and swag out here and hustle, and applied it to this California lifestyle and the things that California allows you to have. Because I mean, with a creative mind, Mississippi kind of you know holds that down.
Got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's possible, but it could be very difficult to accomplish things. So I just knew. And plus, I had family out here who've been trying to get me out here for a while. So I finally came, and you know, that's my journey here. And I've sort of just been trying to create, man. I've written a book. I got a published book out there. We did that. I did that in 2006. So for all those people who want to check out a street love story.
Okay, a street love story.
Yeah, go check out Saved by Love, by Dexter Nine. So that, and then I've also always, I mean, I used to have my own retail store here in the city where I'm at, which is Camarillo. Um, I,
Okay.
I yeah, so I used to do screen printing, um, and the business was screen printing, but the storefront was like a retail store right on Old Town Camarillo, one of the main spots now. So it kind of got me soaked into like the business side of things, just trying to figure things out. So I've always been trying to move and create things, man, because California kind of forces you to do multiple things and multiple streams of income if you want to stay. you
That's
know,
super true.
yeah, if you want to stay, you're
We
gonna have.
you just gave us like a whole bunch of different layers, and I love that you have like all of those different lenses that you're able to look at the community through. But I want to pause at hip hop help for a little bit. So let's talk a little bit more of that. What was the inspiration behind that? How long ago was that? And ultimately like what ended up happening with it?
Yeah, so one day, um, me and a friend was having conversations about just the hip hop space in general and where it was headed. And I think it was around 2016, 2016 or 2015, maybe in 2015. I was watching Ebro in the morning. I was watching a interview with P Diddy, and Diddy was upset with Obama because Obama was on his way out now. And Diddy was upset with Obama during the interview because he felt some things that he requested or wanted hadn't happened over this 8 year period. Because Diddy kind of led that vote or die campaign back in the day.
Right.
So, he was doing this interview and I was listening to him and I was like, man, like he's upset with a guy that has less money and less influence than him. I'm like, we're in
Hmm.
trouble if people at our top echelon of the hip hop community space if they have this mindset, then they don't understand the power they have and how we could help people, how we could change whatever we want to change within the hip hop culture. We can do it ourselves. So
Mm.
that listening to that interview kind of sparked me like, okay, man, I need to do something because I'm that type of person. Like if there's something that I feel passionate about, a conversation, and sometimes, I have to be careful because a lot of things I want to change or I want to do, but I have to, pick and choose, like, because it takes away from other things if I jump into it. But this is just one example. So listening to that, and I said, you know what? Why don't I create something that um, changes the narrative of how people see. Because at the time, like hip hop is always, well, at that time, I think it was jockeying for number one or number two slot as far as the number one genre in the world. So at that time, it was at that level. So I felt like the hip hop community wasn't doing enough for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to the P Diddy interview. So
Mm-hmm.
then, and then anything that we want to change, we can change, but you can't. I felt the narrative need to be changed by an action versus getting on a microphone and yelling at people to tell them we need to change. So it was like trying to implement a systematic change per se.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to a name, I wanted to pick a name that represented something. So landed on the whole hip hop health thing, right? So then from there, um, it had to have a movement as far as how it was going to move within the hip hop space. So then that was okay. Well, let's help some people, and then we had to choose what things we wanted to help people with.
Mm-hmm.
So and through those conversations, man, things came up in regards to food, rent, and utility assistance of helping people because that's what everybody needs, man. We're in California. Things that have are expensive, a little more expensive than other states. So those are things that could help the community. But here's the part that was bringing it together. So the concept I had and the thought process I had was okay. Um, if you go into, let's say you got this old white lady who's about to get evicted from her house, and some way her apartment complex finds starts looking online locally for people who help people with food, rent, utility assistance. So they found hip hop help. So one thing that we implemented when we do that, when we go out and when we was helping someone, well, we tried to take a hip hop artist with us because every other genre of music, I felt at the time, artists are able to be separate from their talent,
Mm-hmm.
their stage talent. In the country world, you can sing about dragging a lady behind a truck, but the country world just sees that as music.
Right.
But in the hip hop space, no, you actually did that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like
Right.
it's a different standard for the same thing that they're talking about. So with the hip hop space, I wanted to change the way those people see hip hop through this platform of helping them. So that when we help somebody stay in their keep from getting evicted, we take the artist with us so that the person can see who the help is coming from. So then it's like, oh, okay, they are good dudes. They do something else besides the rap thing that people that they get the bad rap for the
Mm-hmm.
lyrics.
Right.
So and that's the way it was, man. And at that time, I had the mindset of wanting to just change the whole country with that concept. Just started here in California, but branched it out to everything else. Just going through places, man, just helping people with a food and utility assistance and reaching out to artists. So, and along that journey, of course, when I'm in the 805 and I'm talking about hip hop and I'm talking about doing things, what better person to bring along with you than D Traffic?
Of course. Of
So,
course. Legendary.
so yeah, so Travis was my guy, and him and I, started this thing, and we went from there on, man, and it lasted all the way up until the pandemic. And once the pandemic hit, we were actually getting ready to help the city of Oxnard Tourist Center by putting on a 2-day festival, um, helping them with, trying to dive into the homeless situation.
Okay.
So that was that hip hop health platform, and we had partnered with a local bar, and they would let us put on shows monthly. They didn't charge us, so that was their way of helping us out. They didn't charge us, but they took the bar and whatever food, which I thought was fair. So everything
Yeah,
that
of
came through,
course.
yeah, and everything that came through the door went to the families that we were helping.
That's dope.
So yeah, it was a super dope concept, man. Wish we could have kept it up, but once the pandemic hit and people start going in the different directions as far as how they see music and everything else, how they attend shows, and no one knew what we were going to be able to go back to.
Right, right.
So yeah, so mentally, I just thought it was just way too much work to try to jumpstart something where I felt like people had kind of moved on from certain things.
I feel that. So then, because that is a really really dope concept. So what did you take? What learnings did you take from that experience and to build Project 50?
So Project 50 came about, and it was, this this segue into Project 50 was an organic movement, because when the pandemic happened and everything shuts down, well, 3 4 months into the pandemic, people still trying to figure out, like, what we gonna do, how this gonna work, how life is gonna be, or is everybody gonna just sit at home and get government checks every month? Like
Right, right.
how we gonna function, how we gonna do? Everything was kind of going to a live streaming type, platform for music shows, everything. So during that time, a video surfaces of Ahmaud Arbery being killed, chased down by his father, son, and the neighbor in a truck. So a young lady reached out to me, and she said, "Hey, I was sent your way because someone recommended you be the guy who to help us." Now, looking back at all that community work we had did with Hip Hop Health, and we did that for like 5 6 years. So that's how the community knew, and that's how we built relationships. We put on we created a festival. Just to backtrack a couple of seconds,
Uh-huh.
2018, we put on created a music festival called the Unity Festival. Started that joint with no money, and we were able to put on that show at the Ventura County Fairground, and we had like 16 different acts from country to rock to reggae,
Wow.
mariachi. We had a car show attached to it, so there was a car show there. We had a town hall breakfast where we had like 5 guest speakers. We partnered with the car club to also give proceeds. The cause that we picked up was domestic violence, and because of a situation of how we met the car club, and we partnered with them, and then we end up cutting a check to Interface Children and Family Services for their domestic violence program.
Hmm.
So, and then for that entire day, the festival was free. It was just a donation at the gate, and we gave away free clothing to the whole county all day long.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that, right. So people knew me for that stuff. So now when this tape surfaces, someone says this guy Dexter may be able to help you with what you want to do. So this young lady
Gotcha.
calls me. Yeah. So she calls me, and I was like, "Yo, we in the middle of a pandemic," because they wanted to march in solidarity to what was going on, and I was like, "What we gonna march at? We're in the middle of a pandemic." So I kind of like dismissed it, but I'm like, okay, if they serious, they'll call back. So she did. She called back and she said she really wanted to do it. So I met with her. We did some. I went out to a location. We did a sort of like a walkthrough of where we were going to do the march at, and I guided them down a path of like some strategic things to do, because we're in a pandemic. You don't want, you know, law enforcement shutting down your walk and all these type of things. So one of the strategic visual things is I went to Home Depot the night before and bought this rope like 200 feet long. And every 7 feet, we put a red tape. And when people came out, that's how we started the walk off, so that law enforcement and the community saw that we were trying to abide by whatever rules there was out there, because we didn't really know. But they visually saw that we was trying to do the right thing.
Right.
So a motorcycle cop pulls up next to me. He said, "Hey, do you need some help?" I said, "No, I just need you to not, shut this down." He said, "All right, you got it." So we were able to do that, man. And then not even a month later, another, the video surfaces of George Floyd being killed, and everybody know how that went.
Yeah.
So I was contacted again by a gentleman by the name of Jordan Ward, who is now the VP of Project 50. But he contacted, and he had created this platform thing called The Talk. And it was something to try to bring the community and law enforcement together on a stage and have a conversation around this police brutality thing. And so he contacted me. I made some phone calls, and we were able to make that happen. And during that, it was the pandemic, so of course, inside capacity was only 10% of whatever the building was. So we had a spot that was for 100 people, and we gave away tickets. Said first come, first serve. So whoever showed up at the church that we did it at, those are the first 100 people who got the ticket. So we did that, and then from there, of course, everybody's still online having conversations, right? So once we did that, of course, anytime, you talked about police brutality, certain people would always bring up, well, what about Chicago? And it's like, okay, well, you have LA right here next to you, which lets me know that you're only trying to throw out a catchphrase of what you done heard from a certain, radio station or a certain TV program, talking about Chicago crime. Because you got crime in Oxnard, you got crime in LA, but you don't know anything about that, and that's close to you. Yeah. So the only thing you know is to say, what about Chicago?
Yeah. So, and specifically when you're talking about black crime.
Absolutely. Yes. So as we was having that conversation, I was like, okay, well, we was like, all right, well, let's have that conversation. Let's have that conversation. So as we started building, we were having the conversation around, we created this platform called, we did it on black crime, right? But we labeled it black crime because we wanted to get people to listen. But that wasn't going to be what was being talked about. We were going to talk about crime in general, because there's things like there's basic things that if you take them out of your community, there's crime. I don't care where you live.
100%.
Yep. And that's if you don't have, there's the financial side of things, there's the educational side of things, and then there's just the regular, like, what do you do type thing. So what we did, we had someone from the financial world, we had someone from the educational world, from Oxnard College. Then we had I reached out to 2 former gang members from LA and had them to come up here and get on the panel. So talking and bringing all those things together, just letting the community know, like, hey, these things, if they are absent in your community, then crime is going to happen. I don't care who you are, but people try to put certain things around a certain ethnic group, acting like their community is different than yours. No, pull them resources out of the gentrified, locations and see what happens. It's going to be the same thing. People going to start trying to rob from each other. It's just the way things work. So we had that conversation, and then now kids are getting ready to go back to school, and we put together a platform conversation called Policing Our People, because you do want to be accountable. You want your people hold them accountable too. We're not just out here fighting for you or having a conversation for you. We're going to have a conversation about your accountability too. So we did a platform, a Zoom meeting called Policing Our People. And we started that off with a gentleman who had been assaulted by Oxnard PD.
Oh, wow.
And he actually wanted to be, I think there's a program that is sort of like ROTC for cops or something in high school.
Okay.
So I forget what it's called, but it's like if you want to be like you can start off by being like a peace officer or something like that. But this guy actually was in that program wanting to become a cop. And we started the conversation off with him. We didn't give his name because we didn't want people like trying to look up and see who the person is, just like most media does. Like,
right.
They want to find you smoking weed 10 years ago. Now all of a sudden that's the narrative instead of listening to what you said or what happened to you. So we let him tell his story, but we had someone from the mental health side of things on the panel. We also had two cops from Oxnard PD, two black cops from Oxnard PD. We had them on the platform too. So we wanted to say, because what we did was we put together this thing and it was like, hey, we want to give kids 5 basic things to try to make it out of a stop, right? When you pulled over, you don't need to know everything, but these 5 things, try to hold on to them. So, but what we wanted to do is we didn't want to just say, hey, these 5 things are important. We wanted to bring law enforcement on and say, okay, are we telling them the right way to deal with this when they get pulled over? So we wanted the opinion from law enforcement.
Right.
So now put together those 4 things that's happening during a pandemic, right? So me and Jordan, who's now my VP, so we're orchestrating these things. So for me, I looked at it as, man, like throughout that process, it felt like personally, like the Black community was always asking, we were always looking to be included, looking to be treated, wanting to be treated a certain way. It's like we just kept asking for things. That was that's what I saw. So I was like, okay, why don't I create something that helps us and solves our own problem? And that's how the concept of Project 50 came about, was building something for us that helps us. In going through those things during the pandemic of doing those platforms and those marches and stuff, it was sort of like, okay, let's build something that holds us accountable and helps us at the same time. So from that point, that's where the idea and the concept of Project 50 came from. And from that point, now there has to be a platform that's built. And I was like, okay, what are the things in the areas that I feel that's important to the Black community? And now the contacts of platforms like child support and things like that, right? Well, keep in mind, Hip Hop Help built the foundational stability for people knowing who I was. So when I started Project 50 and the platforms I wanted to use as far as services, these people kind of was already familiar with me through the help I had been providing for everyone through Hip Hop Help. So Hip Hop Help wasn't like for Black people, it was for anyone. And we was helping anybody with food, rent, and utility assistance. So through that platform of 5 to 6 years, that's where the relationships were built to where I can start something and go to these people and say, hey, no disrespect to anyone else, but I'm building this to help and solve the Black people problems only. And I wasn't having an issue with it. It was more like, it was more like, I want to help. Everybody raised their hand, because I did the presentation on a Zoom with a bunch of help organizations and that I was a part of with Hip Hop Help. So they already knew me for that platform. So
Right.
when I introduced it to them, I just said, "Hey, I got this new platform I'm doing. I know y'all know me for this stuff, but that's gone now, you know. And here's where
Well,
I'm at."
let's stop right there for a second because I feel like this is a conversation that rarely, if ever, gets to get have had in the public between two two 805 black community members. So I would love to, if you're willing to speak about it, I'd love to hear like some of the challenges you ran into just being able to align with to find alignment on what black issues are in an area like this when I feel like the black identity is really fractured, right? You have the black people who try so desperately to fit in with the system. You have the black people who are going completely against the system. And then you have your moderates as well. And then you have all of the people outside of the community who feel like they have a say on how the community should operate as well. So, can you explain how those dynamics came into play as you built this and how you navigated that?
So, and that's a great question, man. And I think like this answer um, um, really needs to be heard. When I decided to say what I felt the black community needed as far as service wise, what we would benefit from. So, from having relatives, friends, um, just looking at communities that I've been a part of, seeing how the black community navigate the conversations online, like all these things. So I took all that experience and listening and I put it in a bucket and said, what do I feel is important to the black community that could benefit them, that could help them? And child support is one, job services is two, young adult counseling is three, court appearances is four. So you stop me when you feel that these services the black community don't benefit from. So and then so these platforms are things that all black people probably feel that the black community could benefit from. So I had no problem with like the platforms themselves. So then when I did this, so all these platforms were a part of this group that I was a part of. So I didn't have to go
Mm,
chase them down. It was
okay.
it was them five plus more because this group meets every first Wednesday of the month, and I had been in this group for like 5 or 6 years with Hip Hop Health.
Mm,
So now, fast forward, so I picked these. So when I say, um, I said when I made this presentation online and said no disrespect to anyone else, but this is strictly for the black community, and all those services start saying, "I want to help, I want to help, I want to help." To me, it felt like they were saying, "It's about time somebody try to help y'all. Try to help yourself," basically,
mm, mm,
because no one saw a platform that helped the black community on a daily basis.
right.
There's a lot of things out there that navigate once somebody's killed, once somebody's beat up by a cop, once somebody's done something, then people rise up for that. But
That's
on an
very
everyday,
reactionary.
yep. So on an everyday basis, we kind of just forget about each other, and everybody's left to try to solve their own issues. So now, when it comes to um, the health services, right? Well, I wasn't asking them to do something that they don't already do.
Mm,
So it wasn't like when I picked these five services, and then I had meetings and conversations and presentations with each one of them centered around what I'm building and what this is for. So they all saw it the same way. Like, okay, well, he's not asking us for any manpower because those were questions. They were like, okay, well, how many people we got to attach to this? I said, nobody. I'm not asking you for any of your employees. I'm not asking you for any of your funding. Like those are two very important things: body count and money.
mm,
When you that people are concerned about when you start building something and having conversation. They want to know,
Yeah.
like, okay, what are you going to be taking away from me? Like, I don't have the staff to switch. So those were the mindsets, right? So I had to have that conversation and make them understand, like, I'm not going to need any of that stuff from y'all, but what I am going to need is a centralized person, right? So basically what I told them was like, look, all I'm doing, like, the black community is like 2% of the population in Ventura County. So there's not a lot of. So what I need is a person that we can contact, or a position, because sometimes the people change, but the position is the same. So I need a person or a position that we can call when we have an issue in the black community as a referral and deal with you. Like, I don't need to be able to have to call and talk to 5 different people, get passed around, and nobody knows anything. So it required a relationship from those platforms, and they all agreed. So that part, so now we're looking at systems that already, and these are existing systems, right? So the way I presented it is like, look, this is just look at it as a VIP line to the nightclub. The nightclub is already there. The people are already there. It's just that because of the black community, we're only 2% of the population. So just by the sheer fact of numbers, right? Just looking at numbers, then you're always going to be behind. I don't care what you apply for. You're going to be that minority, that very small minority that may get help. And it has nothing to do with the system. It's all about the numbers game. So it's like if you're application number 1500 and you done seen 1499 get helped in front of you, that could make a black person think the system doesn't work, it's racist, it's against you, and all these other things. It could make you feel that way when your application is just number 1500. And that was just one like scenario, right? So when I presented it in that way, they understood the demographics of who we are. And they know that I wasn't going to be sending a flood of people to whoever this representative is that's going to be assisting us. So I wasn't going to be sending a flood of people over anyway.
Right.
So they knew that, right? So it was just being able to have someone that helped. And also, this wasn't just about us coming to you and needing the black people to be helped first, next, whatever the case may be. What it also was the black community sees systems a certain way. And when I say the black community, I'm not talking about 10 people that live on a certain street. I'm talking about as a generic statement, as a blanket of the community. They see the systems as a certain way. So if I'm able to have a relationship to where I can make a phone call or send an email to child support and get that black person listened to, and then see if they can resolve his issue. Sometimes people just needed a caseworker where they didn't have a caseworker. And if you don't have a caseworker, then there's certain things are not happening with your file. And you are left out there thinking the system is against you and you don't even have a caseworker yet. So sometimes it could be as simple as Project 50 saying, hey, this person needs a caseworker. They've been trying to get one for a year. So we make the phone call and we do it. So that does two things, right? Number one, it gets the black person help, and the black person starts to look at the system different. Number two, the other side of it is it rebuilds a certain amount of trust with the community that you need to operate in the child support system. So it was twofold. They were trying to rebuild their image as well, because they had a Ventura County child support system had a catch and grab type, get them type thing, right?
Okay.
And that's not just Ventura County. Most people see have seen over a period of time um, that child support, they looked at them that way as a, you gonna get me. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
it's
saying?
because it feels predatory. You know, at least the stories I've heard, it feels very predatory.
And it could be. I'm not dismissing that at all. But and that could be the case, right? So now fast forward to us in this situation, in this time, in this generation, in this
Mhm.
moment, it's Project 50. So we just happen to be in the right place at the right time and built the right platform to say, hey, we can help your image too, because this is what the community thinks about you.
Yeah,
You see what
I
I'm saying?
love.
So it's
I
Two-step.
I ain't got no friends, all I got is close enemies. They all alive, but these motherfuckers all dead to me. I ain't got no friends, all I got is close enemies. Singing, whoa, 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 ain't no. Life is walking through a killing field without a vest. Don't know if it's a target or an ass up on my chest. You don't get no stripes for talking shit under your breath. You looking at a goat in the flesh, flesh of my flesh, the blood of my blood. Search for hopes and dreams. The DNA of a king will turn to a dope fiend. But decades later, emancipated, he broke free. Immortalized by my words, see how they quote me. It seems motherfuckers ain't got my back. And if they did, they wouldn't act how they act. But y'all don't hear me though. I learned the reason that they act like that. It ain't because they never had my back, it's cause they fear me though. Every time shorty shining, he acting brand new. I ain't gonna leave y'all behind and I never plan to. Your homies hating, they see that you elevating. They been sitting on their ass for so long, they can't stand you. It ain't my fault that y'all scared of evolution. Running the fuck away from New Year's resolutions. Maybe soon they'll televise my revolution. Must be inspired cause they biting all of my new shit. Not to mention my old shit. I wouldn't trade you, it's in the vault for a whole zip. Get your own shit. Oh shit, my closest friends starting to envy me. I ain't got no friends, all I got is close enemies. All I have in this world is my balls and my words, my heart and my soul. All I need in this life of sin is to keep me between the lines. Take him to the bridge one more time. I ain't got no friends, all I got is close enemies.
Everybody's watching, but nobody's watching out for me, for me, for me.
People have seen over a period of time um, that child support, they looked at them that way as a, you gonna get me. You
yeah,
know what I'm
it's
saying?
because it feels predatory. You know, at least the stories I've heard, it feels very predatory.
And it could be. I'm not dismissing that at all. But and that could be the case, right? So now fast forward to us in this situation, in this time, in this generation, in this
Mhm.
moment, it's Project 50. So we just happen to be in the right place at the right time and built the right platform to say, hey, we can help your image too, because this is what the community thinks about you.
Yeah,
You see what
I
I'm
love.
saying? So it's
I really do love that. Like, it makes a lot of sense, and I think that's something important that you touched on that I never really hear brought up in the conversation of change. Um, and I uh, obviously I do think that um, there are changes that need to take place in the system, but this is the system that we have, and we see the harm that eroding faith in institutions has across the board. And so I think it's really important to have a figure there or help there that says, look, the system does work for you if you know how to properly navigate it. You know what I'm saying? I think that's just as important as change, because if we don't learn to navigate the system we have, how can we change it? You know what I'm saying? So I do think that's really, really important, and I never hear that side of the conversation.
And even like when we're talking about probation, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of the times when people are on probation, there may be this stigma of what probation is. You may have a probation officer that's an asshole. All those things come into play. But if you have a platform like Project 50 who can have a conversation with you, find out what your situation is. Because a lot of the times people run from issues because they just don't want to deal with it,
Right.
or they don't know how to deal with it. So those
Hmm.
two things cause people to neglect the situation. And when it comes to those things, those are simple, but those are the conversations that we have, and we say, hey, listen, what's your situation? Let me, help me understand where you're at. And then we kind of handhold and walk them through a process of, okay, we're going to go over here with you. You may have missed your check-in, right? But I'm going to walk in and you call us. I'm going to walk in the door with you and I'm going to say, hey, listen, we know he missed his check-in, but that's why he was referred to us, because
Hmm.
sometimes people just need guidance. And if they are afraid of the system, right? Because when I say afraid of the system, here's what I'm talking about. So let's say in the black community, I'm only talking, and hopefully people understand when I'm having these conversations with you during
Hmm.
this during this conversation, I'm strictly talking about black people because that's all we help. We only service the black community.
Hmm.
So that's an understanding, so that people, when they hear this conversation, they don't go off the handle and start talking about all these other people.
Right.
you know. So let's say, like, when it comes to this probation thing, right? And we walk in there with you, with an individual, and say, hey, look, we know he missed his check-in time, but part of our process and our program is to help him and you at the same time, because you may have 45 to 50 or 100 probationers that you are responsible for. We don't want our guy to look at you as the enemy, and you don't have time to think about what, or to care about what he thinks or how he
Right.
feels with you. So we are the middle person to mend that relationship, to make
Hmm.
sure he gets in on time and you don't write him up for a violation, and now he's doing 45 in the county when it's a simple thing. He
Right.
didn't know how to come to you after he missed it. And
Right.
him missing it could be a serious situation. But it's not your job as a probation officer to care about that. You
Right.
just care about
Right.
it. So we're sort of like that platform for the person too. And that's just one aspect of probation, just keeping us accountable, because sometimes we have things going on in our life in the black community that doesn't allow us to do just simple things. There's so many things to think about that are piled on top of, you know, everyday life,
Yeah.
and, and people just miss that sometimes. So we're here for that, man. We're here to help you stay on track.
I love that. Look, and so we don't have much more time, but there are two more things I want to cover before we get out of here. And one is what you're doing in the education system out there. And I know that's not like the sole purpose of Project 50, but I do think it's really, really interesting. So I know that recently you kind of had basically, actually, you can break down, but I know that there was some racial tension going on in schools up there, and you kind of helped set of curriculum, or break it down for me, because I don't want to misspeak.
So we were and you're correct. So we have a young adult counseling program, and that young adult counseling program is centered around young adults. and young Black adults, right? So in February, we partnered with two other local platforms, and we took students to the Black College Expo at the LA Convention Center, where you had all these HBCUs and everybody else there, right? So we took some kids from Ventura County there, and that was students' kind of introduction to Project 50 in our young adult counseling program. But one thing I told them was that I know you've been used to fighting fights in school and feeling like you had no support. Well, those days are over. Project 50 is here, and we are here to fight for you. We are here to help you. We are here to make sure that you have the same opportunity to get an education as the next person just walking down the hall. Just that simple. So that conversation, right? That conversation, that was February 10th. And then from that conversation, now we get back in town, and all of a sudden we start getting calls about things that are being racial slurs being used at school against Black students. And it has snowballed into a big visual issue here in Ventura County. And it's been sort of on a quiet radar because the Black students don't feel they have anyone to fight for them. So they take it. And then from that point, you got a small 2% population of Black in Ventura County. So sometimes the parents of those Black students don't stand up for their own student because they don't feel that there's enough of us to fight back. So they let their kid take it. I'm not saying this is all of them, but these are some messages that come to us.
Yeah.
And they don't want to rock the boat. You know, so a lot of things. So we start getting calls in February, and these calls are coming mainly from the elementary level and the middle school level. Now, at this level, this is a level where things are being taught in the home.
Right. Yeah, like it's not like they're coming to these realizations on their own at that late. Yeah.
Yeah. There are things that are being taught in the home that are camouflaged when they get out into the school. And one of the things that we've discovered that is happening, and the racist parent, and this is who we're talking about, the racist ones. So when we're speaking on racism, we're not talking about a whole ethnic group of white people, a whole ethnic group of Hispanics, a whole ethnic group of Islanders, a whole ethnic group of Asians, or anyone like that. We're talking about racist people, and that's where people get lost in this conversation. When you're talking about racism, the act is being committed by an individual. That individual is part of an ethnic group. We're not talking about the entire, it's just like, you know, and that's the part that most people don't understand when you're fighting this fight. And I say they don't understand because if you understood, then when we say this is happening, let's say we're talking about white people, right? If this white guy calls this Black girl a slave and a coon, okay? If white people understand that we're not talking about all white people, it's just like saying good and bad cop, and the good cop never say anything.
Right.
This is the same issue. The good white people, there are some out there, but they're not speaking up enough in these situations to where it's making a difference.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's it. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, finish your thought. Sorry.
So we're dealing with so many of those issues, man, and the only way, the only way I think we've been able to make um, a lot of progress in a short period of time because we use an unconventional method of getting people's attention. So we show up at board meetings and I call it unconventional, but it's reality, right? So I show up and I say certain things. For example, we went to we was at a board meeting March 20th in Oxnard. I show up, I introduce myself, I introduce our organization, I look around in the room and I say, I see we have a bunch of niggas, crackers, wetbacks, and slant eyes all in the same room. So now you can see the look on people's face, right? Like, oh, who is this guy? Wait a minute. What did he just say? So what I get people to understand is, oh, you offended now?
Right. Yeah.
Because these are the words that are being used by the kids. Why do you think I'm here?
Yeah. And you did not care. You did not care.
You didn't care when these kids was using it, but now I'm standing in front of you with the cameras on and nobody can hide, and now all of a sudden you're offended. Okay,
Yeah.
now that we all offended, now we solve the problem. Because most people think that this is a nigger problem, and that's why. And when we go into these meetings, we have these conversations because most people think when you're talking about racism, and it's just an automatic thing, man. Over a period of time, we've been groomed mentally. When I say we, I mean society. We've been groomed that when racism comes up, black people is involved some kind of way. You know what I'm saying? So people automatically think it's a black problem. It's a nigger problem. So most people just stay away from it, stay out of it. Oh, he ain't talking to me. Oh, I ain't dealing with it. Oh, you know what I'm saying? And that's the attitude that people have. But they don't understand that this is not just a black person problem. Racism is happening to
Yeah. I mean, it's ultimately a white problem because it stems from white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? So that's the one through line you could find at the end of all racism is usually white supremacy. So yeah.
Somewhere along the line, they've created a problem. So now we're
100%.
dealing with it. So yeah, man, we're dealing with that right now. And once we get into the meetings and kind of explain to people about what's going on and what we're doing and the work that's happening, we're working with districts and that are making changes. One of the things I do have to say is that I say things to get us to the table, and some people don't like that. You know, some people would rather there be a phone call, right? We're in a meeting and I was told that, okay, you could have called and we could have avoided, like, you know, what happened at the board meeting. First of all, when I come, I'm coming for the safety of the black student. I don't really care if you felt that I could make a phone call to you, then why are we having this problem anyway?
Right. Why do I need to make a phone call to you? Why aren't you just doing something? You know what I'm saying? If you have that kind of pull.
Exactly. Yeah, but nothing will get done unless somebody is so these board meetings are public and they're being recorded and there's Zoom links that people click on to watch. So I have to say that since we started attending board meetings on March 7th, I'm sure more people have started watching those board meetings to see what's going to happen and what's going to be talked about from the community. Because I know the traffic on our website went up 325%.
That's dope.
So I know people are trying to figure out who we are, but we're just somebody who said, look, we want our black kids to be able to walk down the hall with everybody else and get an education and not have to worry about other stuff. And then sometimes people wonder why, like, maybe our reading levels may be lower, our math scores may be lower, our, you know, all these things may be lower because they're dealing with this whole racism issue there inside the school. Yeah. Like that's on their mind more than what's 8 times 4.
Yeah.
So we're here to change that, man, and there's some good stuff that has happened with in a 60-day period. There's still work to do because there's still teachers that, even though they've been trained, they still want to disrespect black kids. And one of the things I want to say before we get off, man, about when we're talking about this, I don't want people to leave this conversation and think that we just come in and fight for black kids on racism, right? We even made an offer to the school district to say, hey, let us inside so that we can police our own kids. Because there's that, well, the rappers say it, you know, and even in that conversation, you know, I have an answer for all that stuff. Like, this is not, we're not coming to the table with no answer. Like, when people bring that up and they talk about, well, they say it in the rap music. I said, okay, well, let me say this. You may not want to admit it in this meeting, but I can guarantee you, when you in your backyard barbecue, you throwing around some words that you and your white people use. I know y'all throwing around redneck in the backyard, you know, but it's cool between y'all. But ain't nobody out in the world trying to run around and call you a redneck and a cracker every day. Right. Because we don't care. We're not that disrespectful. So stop acting like you don't know what this means. Yeah. Stop acting like you got a green light, or you confused as to why rappers say and what in XYZ. Like I grew up in the South. The term redneck was meant for ignorant, slow white people. But you got artists, country artists, who use that term in their music. I was watching a race car event last month. The commentator is talking about how much of a redneck he is. So it's like, okay, so y'all can use these terms and there not be any backlash. Nobody wants to take it from you. Nobody's trying to pull it out of your backyard barbecue. You can say whatever you say, but everybody else out here knows not to call you a redneck. We know what that means. We're not itching to say it. Like, that's the question that most people should be asking themselves. Why do you want to call somebody a monkey? Why do you want to walk around? Why do you want to, walk around saying nigga? Why do you want to call
why
somebody
do you have to say it? Is it?
Yeah.
Is
so
even, I just
go ahead.
I just had this conversation the other day, and it drives me crazy that I never hear people talking about this, but like, black culture is the only culture, like black culture. So like reggae, hip hop, they're the only cultures where country music, where they just basically get infiltrated by people outside of the culture and then have the blackness stripped from them. And then you have things like California reggae, which is reggae with no black people basically, or Blue Eyed Soul, which is just R&B with no black people, or K-pop, which is Asian R&B, or like you don't see fucking black mariachi, and you don't see like black reggaeton, you know what I'm saying? Like, people only come into our cultures and then take the shit from us and then try to kick us out of it and then get mad when we say something about it. And I just don't understand that shit. It's so crazy.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening in the schools, man. And these conversations are and I don't like, one of the things that makes us powerful is that we're not grant funded by people, because you can best believe that once we started making appearances at school districts and speaking up for black students, you can best believe that somebody started trying to find out who funds those guys.
Of course.
Who's paying their?
Yeah, I mean, and they're gonna try to follow them, cut it off, because what you're doing and what you're saying is too powerful. And I know we could get down a rabbit hole on that for hours, but we only have 10 minutes left, and I couldn't have this conversation without talking about round 4. I just want you to kind of give the people a little bit of where that inspiration came from, what it's about, and what can we expect from it next.
Sure, man. I can make that one quick. So round 4 the thing that Round Four and Project 50 both were created during a pandemic at the same time, and I move them both at the same time. So Round Four kind of has the same type of concept. We was doing the whole hip hop help thing, right? So now with this pandemic, and everybody's doing different things online, doing live streaming their shows, events, and everything else. But me loving hip hop, I said, you know what? I can't let the pandemic take away live shows. I can't let that be gone. So I'm gonna be one of the people that fight for people coming together in a live show and not letting everything go to a online type platform. So that was the original conversation that I was having with myself, because it was like people would call me about, okay, well, what is hip hop help gonna do? This is and that. It's like, it's kind of, things have kind of moved on. So with that, I'm still in the hip hop space in the 805. So it's like, okay, well, I need to create something that allows me to stand out on a platform versus everything else, because people are moving in so many directions, creating their own things and doing everything else. So for me, it came about like that. That was the original thought of wanting to stay in the hip hop space, and I had to create something that was different. And I kind of took it also more of a competitive type thing, but a live show. So the whole LL Cool J joint, really, like, okay, what do I want to do? That's something that was powerful. That's something that everybody still, talk about till this day. So from that, and then I came up with the name of Round Four, because it had to be a show that lasts for a while. And I'm into boxing as well. I'm not a boxer myself, but I love watching boxing. Let's clear that up. I didn't want nobody to think I'm out here training to be. But both of those sports I love. Both of those things I love. So I just figured out a way to bring them together and create a show to where it's competitive, but it's not a competition, and have artists perform on just, it's a different way of coming to a show, and there's 4 or 5 people on the bill. These are still 4 or 5 people on the bill. We've just created a platform to where it's more, entertaining, and it's built for pre-fight entertainment. I'm cultivating everything here or in Ventura County, but the goal is for Las Vegas. It's a Las Vegas show.
I feel that.
To do them before our last show that we did, we had females on, and we did it on a fight night, and people kind of got to see the full aspect of Round Four. It's a 2-hour event where the first hour is just people vibing, getting to know each other, networking, doing whatever you do. And then once the artists start performing, then it's a 1 hour and a half of entertainment back to back. There are no breaks in between. So, and when I say I love boxing, so I wanted to give that full concept. So we have ring announcer, we have card girl, we have ringside commentator. So everything looks like a boxing match until the artists come out. But the atmosphere is pre-fight entertainment. And hip hop has always been a part of the boxing world anyway. Once Mike Tyson came on the scene, and he started, using the whole hip hop platform as far as the walkouts and everything else, it kind of changed everything. And hip hop has been a part of it ever since. So those are 2 relationships that live together. But this time we just flipping the script, man, and putting the artist in the ring instead of the fighter. So, but one of the good parts about it, I think the most interesting part about it is the ringside commentator, where you got, 2 commentators commentating on previous shows from that artist. I mean, it's a whole boxing feel to it. You get the vibe, and people who have attended it, they kind of understand. Some people are skeptical because they sit back and try to wonder or figure out, how does this work? But once you come to a show, then people see how it actually works.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely an experience. I highly recommend that you follow Dex on all social media because you got to check out, first of all, Project 50, but Round 4 is an experience. It's just a very artistic, creative, dope environment. I feel like it's when it's a Vegas show and it's pre-fight entertainment, that completely makes a lot of sense. And I think there's just a lot of innovation and room for it to do really great things. So you have our support, but I definitely suggest anybody watching this or listening to this goes and checks it out. Dex, where can people follow you, and that's the best way for them to support everything you have going on?
So for the Project 50, we have an Instagram page which is VC Project 50, and it's Project 50, the number 50. Our website is vcproject50.org. And then when it comes to round four, round4events.com is the website where people can go and you can see all the previous shows, the artists. And then we have an Instagram page, which is also Round 4 Events. So you can go there, and those are the two places to check out, that platform. So, and they're both happening at the same time, man. So I hope people don't take it lightly that both platforms is not really about me. I have a family, a nice job, and we can travel and do all that other stuff. Both of these platforms are about creating opportunities for people because both of them do that. Project 50, we're supporting and helping. In round four, we're creating a platform to showcase the best of the best, per se. And that's what it's all about. Because once you step inside the ring, that's a whole different type of energy than just being on a stage performing. You inside that ring, and it's just you and that microphone, and you got to go with it. There's no hype man. There's no help. It's just you.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that, and like I said, I highly recommend y'all checking out Round 4 because if you love hip hop and artistry, and if you're local in the community, definitely check out Project 50 and ask how you can get involved. Because Dex is doing really really amazing things over there. Dex, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy weekend to talk to us, and I'm excited for the coast to hear what you have to say, man. And I hope you have a great day.
All right, man. You too. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
For sure, for sure. Have a good one.